So, good afternoon, Professor Dobrenko.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to Cambridge.
Thank you.
So, you're here today to talk about terror and beauty. So, my first question is, how are these two seemingly unrelated and almost opposite concepts of terror and beauty? How are they related?
Well, um, it's hard to imagine this link, but in the real world, um, they are in fact very close because, as you know, beauty is always close to art, and art is always close to um, religious or secular power. Um, well, the rest of the story is quite clear because power is almost always based on coercion. So this link um, is well established, and beauty, especially in 20th century, um, as it was before, used and abused by all sort of terroristic regimes uh, in their in the process of the creation of new mobilizational strategies, new uh, 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 um, regimes of creation of new post-revolutionary societies based on mobilization, social mobilization, creation of new nations, creation of a new revolutionary subjects. This process almost always requires mythology. It requires, all sort of, heroic past, and of course appeal to epic history, to the past, to the antiquity. It's always there. So this is how these two seemingly very far from each other two notions are in fact, in reality, they're quite close to each
Okay.
other. Yeah.
So, could you give us an example or two on the kind of regimes that have been using beauty in their terroristic or their totalitarianism regimes?
Well, in fact, well, just look at uh, not too far European history of 20th century. As we all know, aesthetics and beauty was uh, heavily used by all totalitarian regimes. It was used in Nazi Germany. It was used in fascist Italy, in Stalin's Russia. It was used in Franco's Spain or Salazar's Portugal. It was used in by any totalitarian regime of 20th century. They're always in the process, as I've said, they're always in the process of production of a new subject, and this new subject that comes usually these are people from these are usually traditional societies, people coming from, rural areas. uh, for them it's a new culture. They come in huge numbers, floating this new city culture, producing new culture, and of course all these regimes use use different elements of beauty uh, to support and legitimize their regimes.
So, for example, how does this physically manifest itself? Is it artwork and cinema and
It's in
music?
cinema, it's in architecture, it's in literature, it's everywhere. It's in theatricalization of everyday life. Look at for example, Nazi military parades. This whole culture of new body. Look at the Stalinist architecture. Look at Nazi architecture. Well, it's you can't look at it at the moment because it was destroyed. But for example, in Soviet Union, it survived. So you can just go to Moscow Metro. You'll see what I mean by beauty and terror.
Okay. Okay. And has there ever been a backlash? Have people ever seen through this beauty and realized, hang on a minute, this is just covering up something a little bit more sinister and something more severe, and then perhaps rebelled against this beauty in some way?
Well, you see, the very idea, the very idea of the totalitarian beauty, or rather, what we call totalitarian kitsch, the very concept of it is a result of um, cultural extrapolation of one culture on the of the so-called high culture on the people who socially came from different social stratas. Look, for example, I'm a specialist in Stalinist culture. And this is what happened. Well, basically, this is what happened in most of these countries. These countries were in the process of modernization, industrial modernization, cultural modernization. They all went through cultural revolutions, different sort of cultural revolutions. For example, in Soviet Union, what happened in 20s and 30s, all these millions and millions of people fled from villages because of collectivization and Stalin's revolution from above, moved to the cities. City culture was destroyed after the revolution because all the intelligentsia, all aristocracy, all these people of high culture emigrated. So basically, you have cities full of yesterday's peasants. These are just slightly urbanized peasants, and they need their new culture, they need their new history, and power authorities, they also need history for them, because this for the authority was a way of legitimization. So it was very important for them to maintain this uh, well, we can call it fake history or fake memory, but definitely artificial memory, artificial history, artificial past, because these people, they were, they needed past. They
Because there
needed
was a
history.
there was a cultural vacuum left by the real
Absolutely,
the real
absolutely,
intelligent people leaving,
absolutely,
and it
and
was
there,
filled by the
yep.
totalitarian kitchen,
It
the
was
pretend
filled.
history,
Yeah,
and
it was filled by people came from different culture. It was peasant culture. It was different culture. It wasn't like better, a good culture or bad culture. It was just different. And this culture, this is what happens during all these revolutions. It's destroyed. It's destroyed because of process of modernization. So these people, they lost their old culture, they didn't get a new one, and the authority gives them this new sense of history, their place in some new historical and cultural narrative. This is what was very important for these people, and naturally, uh, the whole the whole machinery of this propaganda worked for that. Just look, for example, what happens during revolutions. Look what happens today, for example, as we are witnessing, literally like these days. in Middle East, these revolutions
Yeah.
there, and everybody's saying the same thing. These regimes, they go and they leave after themselves ruins, because there is no opposition, everything is destroyed. People, I mean, not physically, but in terms of culture, in terms of history, in terms of you know uh, uh, mm, you know morale, etc., etc. So you have new culture, new power that comes, and they have to rebuild not just factory, not just oil depots. They have to rebuild people's mentality. So they have to produce new narratives, new you know new history, everything from scratch. So you can't do it from scratch. You have to appeal to the past, and uh, this is where they meet again: beauty and power, and sometimes terror.
Excellent. So, in summary, would one way to protect yourself from totalitarianism rule be to keep hold of the real past and not allow there to be a vacuum?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for talking to us.
You're very welcome.